right, welcome to our summit, our 2022 Executive Function Summit. Today, we have the fabulous Dana Lam, who, by the way, congratulations. She just got married recently, so congratulations on that. Dana is the author of Surprise Date Challenge, and Dana, I'm gonna give this to you. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about you and your business and how you got started.
Well, thank you, Fazia, for having me on today. And yes, now I'm Dana Lam Kupper now. So I am changing my name, which is a big undertaking in itself, but I felt like I kind of needed that fresh start. But so my husband and I met 7 years ago, and friends introduced us, and it was a whirlwind romance. And it was a few weeks into dating, Marty had this idea that said, he said, I don't want to get bored in this relationship, and let's plan surprise dates for each other once a month. What do you think about that? And I said, sure, I'm on board. And so that's something that we have practiced for the past 7 years. And then a few years later, after reading the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, she said, the universe will give you an idea, and if you don't run with it, someone else will. And people would always comment about our surprise dates. At the time, we called it our fun fantasy ritual. So I would say to Marty, hey, I'm going to plan a surprise date on Saturday, or an FFR is what we would call them. And we still call them that, but they're in effect surprise dates. And so 5 years ago, we decided to share this with the world and help other couples to keep that romance and connection alive in their relationship. And Surprise Date Challenge was birthed, and we've written 3 books. Our most recent is Surprise Date Challenge Bedroom Dates. It has 24 dates that start or end in the bedroom. We also have the home edition that was intended for couples, but it can also be used for families. It's date ideas you can do at home with your friends, your kids, that kind of thing.
And I love the fact that this starts out with a couple, but you can have a surprise date with your child or your girlfriend or your parents or whomever you really just have a relationship with. And that's important. But today I want to talk specifically about the importance of that parental relationship and the impact that it has on children and why that parental relationship is so important to maintain. So can you talk a little bit about that? Why do you find, because I know you and I agree on this, why do you think it's so important to have this parental relationship stay as strong as it was from the beginning?
Right. Well, Tony Robbins says if you do it in the beginning, if you do throughout your relationship what you did in the beginning, your relationship will not end, something to that effect. I'm not saying it verbatim, but, and it's so true. I mean, if you think about it, when we're first in love and you have that new whirlwind phase, you are putting your best face forward, right? You're trying to impress the person. You're hoping they like you as much as you like them. And you have butterflies in your stomach and things are exciting and you would do anything. They might say, do you want to go fishing? And you hate fish and fishing. And you would probably go and do it just because you want to spend time with them, right? And then as time goes on, you have some kids, you get married, you have chores, you have your job, you have things to do, you're exhausted. 5 o'clock rolls around and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to go on a date. I don't want to make the extra effort to write this person a love note even, because you're so tired, right? You just want to go to bed. You're exhausted and you've already caught them, right? You've caught them, they've caught you basically. And so it's not intentional. It just happens over time. And if you think about your parental relationship, and even if you're in you've been divorced and you're in a new marriage or a second relationship, like I am, this isn't my first marriage, and my kids are now 18 and 22, but they've been with Marty and I together. So this is our home. And that's the foundation of the house, the parents are. And if you have cracks in your foundation, the house is going to crumble. I just think that's the best analogy for it. So you want to make sure your relationship is strong. And with kids, it's not what's taught, it's what's caught. They whether you know it or not, they see everything, they hear everything, they know what's going on. They know if mom and dad are happy, if mom and dad are not happy, if they're faking it. And it's just really, it's really, really important for the parents to put some effort and stay connected.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think you're right in that, people think once they've caught, quote unquote, caught the other person, that's it. That's the ultimate goal. But should we shift our goals maybe?
Oh, definitely. I meet so many people. I watch single people all the time and think about how much time and effort that they put into dating on the dating apps and going on this date and that date. And then they rest on their laurels a little bit once they're in that relationship. And not all people do, but I mean, it's common. It is a lot. And I personally was guilty of it. I did that in my relationship when I was married for 13 years to my kid's dad, and I take full responsibility for, my portion of it. It definitely takes two, but my portion of the demise of our relationship. And it's interesting because we had on-site babysitters. My in-laws lived in our casita and watched our kids, and we did have regular date nights, but our date nights were going to like dinner or a movie, getting away from the kids. And then we would be sitting at dinner and we really didn't have anything to talk about. We would talk about boring things like work and the kids. I just remember it just was lackluster. It wasn't exciting anymore. And so you have to create that. And so that's where the surprise date challenge ties in, is that if you say to somebody, if I said to you, even Fazia, like, as hey girlfriends, we're gonna go, I'm gonna like, hey Fazia, I want to take you on a surprise date. So what are you doing, Saturday at 10 o'clock, you're free. I'm going to pick you up, wear yoga clothes, workout clothes. You have no idea what we're doing. I take you to Arizona goat yoga. We do goat yoga. You're totally blown away. It's like something you would never do. You're not even sure if you want to do it, but you do it because you're there. You're like, well, hey, we're there.
And it's new.
Yeah. And it's new and it's different. And then we go to Queen Creek Olive Mill afterwards and we share a pizza and a salad and a glass of wine and we listen to some music on the patio. And those are both things we've never done together. And what it does, it bonds and connects you as humans together. And in a romantic relationship, it's the same thing. And it adds those butterflies and excitement. Now we don't have to talk about work and our kids and boring things, because we can talk about our goat yoga experience. And what do you think about the band or the song, or isn't this pizza delicious? And also with our clients, we have a date of the month club, and we email out conversation starters every month that you can go on your date, then go to dinner. And then you have a question you could talk about. Like, I would ask you, Fazia, what if you had a superpower, what would it be? Or maybe, what is your superpower? You can put your own spin on it. We all have superpowers, right? What's yours? And then you can make it fun and talk about, well, if like, oh, I'd like to read minds, or I don't know, see through walls, whatever, something that's maybe, fantasy, but we can also have a reality of what is your superpower. So it gives you new things to create excitement and passion and connection in your relationship. And that's so important. Going to dinner is not a date, or going out to eat is not a date.
That's just dinner.
It is. Yeah. And you have to eat
that anyway.
Combine it, right? Or unless it's a cooking class. So cooking classes are fun because they're interactive and you're doing something new together and then you're eating. So that's kind of the exception to the rule.
I think people used to travel as their excitement, and it had a similar effect that what you're talking about. You're talking about, a date night that could be local, that could be, within an hour of your home or 5 minutes of your home. And I'm thinking this is probably why so many people used to travel, so that they could have that connection in a new environment, doing something new with their family, with their spouse, and have something to talk about. I know my parents used to travel extensively, and I think that gave them things to talk about. That gave them experiences they would not have had otherwise. And they have experiences with each other that makes it unique to them, their time as a couple. And yes. I think that's what you're trying to recreate, but in a local way.
Yep. in the fond, in that fondness and those memories. And you can do it when you travel too. That's a good point. We just went on our honeymoon, and Marty surprised me. I wanted to do this. I found this Dubai flying dress tour. I mean, it wasn't really a tour, it was an experience. And it was a little pricey. And so he totally surprised me. He said, okay, tomorrow you have to be up at 4 a.m. And at 4:30, showed up a hairdresser and a makeup artist, and then a driver at 6 a.m. took me out in the desert to meet the photographer. We go in the desert. I get to put on this beautiful red dress, and then it flies in the wind, and then they're editing all these, beautiful pictures. So I got to feel like a movie star for the day. And so you can do things when you travel, and it doesn't have to be expensive. Now that it can be luxurious, and that was a nice, surprise, but literally it could be free. It could be as easy as, getting a ladder out and climbing on your roof and looking at the stars, like, take a blanket and a pillow, throw it up there, and, lay on your roof and look at the stars and talk up there. If you haven't done that before, I mean, or it may have been something you've done as a kid, right? Or to watch them for the fireworks, that kind of thing.
I think a lot of what I hear you saying is just experience life, just enjoy it and do it with the people you care about. And so I love that. And I love the idea that it helps keep parents and their relationships strong, because they are the foundation of the family. And you can do these dates with the kids as well. But what I love even more about this is that it ties into executive function. Yes. Because you can teach your kids how to, manage a project, manage their time, organize something. How do you feel about that?
Oh, that's so true. So my older son is 22 now, and he plans surprise dates for his girlfriend, and she wrote him a card, and he wouldn't read me all of it, so I don't know what it said, but part of it said, thank you so much for planning surprise dates for me. I really appreciate it. Like, she really appreciated that. And so I love that I've set that up, and now she plans surprise dates for him. So he's taught her. And so I know, who knows, they're young, what's going to happen with their relationship, but we've set that, they've kind of set that standard and that foundation. And, it does I think it's taught him to be more, a little more responsible, and to realize that, things aren't just gonna, magically happen, right? And you can't just, wish for a date to be planned, or, oh, if I shovel stuff under the carpet, or avoid things. So I think it teaches people, it teaches you to be intentional, you do have to plan, you have to be creative, you have to use some creativity, think, maybe do a little bit of research, right, on what you want to do, and set the date, invite somebody, so doing those types of things, and then, book the tickets, or, if you, coordinating time with, okay, we're going to spend an hour and a half here, and then we're going to do dinner nearby, and find a place to eat that's nearby or convenient. So it is planning all of that, which does tie into executive functioning,
which I absolutely love. I know you love to tell stories. So tell us some stories of dates that maybe you and Marty have done for each other, or some of the dates that you might recommend on your site or your books.
Oh, sure. I would love to. One of my favorite surprise dates, I think a key here is to pay attention to what your partner says. And we have 2 ears and one mouth, right? And use them accordingly. And actually, I have one of my mentors I'm actually taking a class and learning with. She actually taught me something kind of cool. She said, kind of pretend like you're unscrewing your ears and putting them in your chest. And so instead of hearing with your mind, listen with your heart. And it's kind of interesting. Like, I know it seems kind of weird, like, and hokey, but pretending you kind of unscrew your ears, put them in your chest. And then if you close your eyes and you take some deep breaths, it's weird. You can kind of feel your heart vibrating. And I love that. And so pay attention. And so Marty, I had mentioned to him, I said, oh, look at this class. It's on, it was acro yoga. And I'm like, this looks really cool. But I was honestly, I was a little bit nervous and scared because I'm not very athletic. So I wasn't sure I'd be able to do it. And so one night, he said, wear yoga clothes, and we went to an acro yoga class, and we were both impressed with what we were able to do. And it said it was for beginners, and they could teach you how to do it. But literally, Marty was laying on his back. He put his feet in the air, and I like wrapped my legs around his and kind of was sitting on his legs, and he was able to lift me in the air. And we have some really, and then they took pictures for us. So we have proof that we actually did it. And so we did these crazy acrobatic yoga positions, like kind of where you hold in place.
Yeah.
And I was surprised I was able to lift him too. And that was a really fun experience. I know we've done, I don't want to talk, some of my favorite are when we're traveling. And once I surprised him with a cooking class in Christopher Columbus's childhood home in Barcelona, Spain. And I found it on Airbnb. So Airbnb is a great experience. We were just in Dubai and we did a tour, and it was $35 a person. It was very reasonable for a 3-hour tour that included some snacks. They called it a food tour. It really wasn't, but we met somebody who was born in Dubai to show us around, tell us about some of their customs, how they dress, how many wives they can have, different, just some of the cultural things. Right. And
like, it was very really apply to what we're talking about today, because we're talking about one relationship.
2 people. Yes. And not everybody does have more than one wife. That's like a kind of it's very rare that happens. It's interesting, but we have these preconceived notions, but that was a really great tour. Here in town, I mean, there's so many things that you can do. It's all about, I think I'm always scouring for what's something fun and unique to do, like beekeeping. I was at a resort once, I think it was Miraval or somewhere down in Tucson, and they actually had beekeeping was, you get to pick 2 activities a day you can do. And one of them was beekeeping. So you put the beekeeping garb on and they teach you about the bees, and they show you how to collect honey. And I'm like, well, that's just kind of obscure. You definitely remember that, right? And they actually have that around the country. You can find beekeepers, and it's usually $50 a person. And, you spend an hour with the bees learning that. So you can find weird and wacky things. But I mean, think about some of the childhood things, a lot of the things. I mean, have you been bowling lately? Laser tag, virtual reality. You can go do virtual reality together.
Axe throwing. What I find interesting is that you can do really expensive things, or you can do really inexpensive things, or even free things. You can just go to the park and sit by the water, and that doesn't cost anything, and have a picnic by the water.
Right.
So there's so much variety, and I think what it does is it really keeps that relationship fresh and gives you that opportunity to have things to talk about. A lot of times I hear people say, oh, well, that's too expensive. But I look at it as an investment in your relationship. I think it's an investment. Would you agree with that?
Oh my gosh, yes. And I have to tell you, from being divorced, it is much less expensive than a divorce. Having date nights is way cheaper than a divorce for sure.
And I think long term, especially for kids, it gives that foundation, it gives that stability. And it also teaches your kids how to have that wonderful relationship. So it models the behavior. And as you know, since we also do the Parenting Pulse together, which I'm looking forward to you being back on soon, hopefully this month, I'm thinking you're going to be back on.
Yes.
Okay.
I can come back.
And we've talked quite a bit about modeling behavior for our kids. And I think this is a really important way to model how to have a healthy relationship with your spouse, as well as your other family members or even friends. And this is not something that we're taught or were taught, 20, 30 years ago. This is kind of a new concept.
It is. And we're evolving as humans, right? With our technology and everything going on. I will tell a story about my boys. One Saturday, we said to them, well, before Saturday, we said, hey, this Saturday, you need to be ready to leave the house at 10 a.m. and wear your swim trunks and flip-flops. And, we packed some towels and other things, had no idea what we were doing. We drove for about 45 minutes out of town to a lake and went paddleboarding. And my son at the time was probably 15 or 16. This is a few years ago. And afterwards, and they don't say anything. And the cool thing about planning surprise dates, Marty says, there's no whining, there's no complaining, because how can you complain about something you don't know? You don't know what you're doing. So there's nothing to complain about, right? It's a surprise. And some, like Harrison didn't like goat yoga. I did a surprise date with him with goat yoga. He's like, Mom, I don't ever want to do that again. He didn't like it. And I said, but you tried it. Now you know. And so that's something that I taught him, you don't know until you try it, right?
But that too is an important lesson, learning what you don't like, right?
Exactly. And so it's stepping out of your comfort zone and trying new things. So that's something you can teach your kids. So we went paddleboarding, and after paddleboarding though, he goes, Mom, you are so smart. And I said, why is that? And he goes, because if you would have said we were going paddleboarding, I would have complained the whole way, and I would have said I didn't want to go or I wasn't going. And he goes, but I actually really enjoyed this. And I thought that was really, and that was a huge lesson to show him as well in that. And it also, I think, helps your kids if they're shyer or more quiet. Harrison's on the spectrum and sometimes doesn't like new experiences, but being on the spectrum, like I try to set him up and prepare him as much as possible, like what to wear is really important, and kind of the time frame, so he knows that. And I tell him a few days in advance. For him, it wouldn't work for me to say, all right, get your shoes on, your swim trunks, we're leaving right now. Would not work. Like, so you have to know your partner and your kids and what works for them. Other people, you may, if you give them too much notice and they're like, I don't like surprises, and they could be freaked out about it. So maybe telling them at 8 o'clock that you're leaving at 10 o'clock is a better idea, so you have to gauge what works with your family and try different things out. But that is such a great opportunity, as a family, because it bonds and connects us, and we can talk about it, and it gets people, I think for kids, especially, or my kids, then they know, oh, hey, I can try something new and do something unknown and be okay. And sometimes I'll like it and sometimes I won't, but I'll survive it. So it's a good lesson.
Trust is also a big factor in that relationship, because if he didn't trust you, he probably wouldn't be open to that.
Right.
So I think if you're going to do a surprise date for anybody, you have to have a relationship already established, so that there is that trust.
Well, exactly. And, if somebody's afraid of heights, you may not want to take them hot air ballooning, or, you wouldn't want to surprise them with hot air ballooning or skydiving or something, which actually reminds me of you asked me about dates. I just reminded me of a story. So one time I asked Marty, I said, okay, can you be ready at 4 o'clock on Thursday? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, well, I need you to pick water or air. I'm sorry, metal or air. And he chose air. And so then I told him how to dress, and we went indoor skydiving, but he was worried. He goes, oh my gosh, I was so worried you were going to take me real skydiving. So he kind of guessed it with that a little bit, but I think it was still a great date. And I'm glad I did it that way. Had he chose metal, we would have went to a gun range. Would have been that. So you can change it up and make it playful, because when you're planning a date every month, sometimes he sent me like an evite for a date, which is funny, or he'll invite me via email. Sometimes it's text, sometimes it's in person, sometimes it's with a gift. So even then, like anything you do repetitively over time, you don't want it to get boring, so you can keep it creative.
I like that you can mix it up, and so you don't really know when to expect the invitation. Right. Do you have like a schedule, like this month I do one, next month he does one, or do you each do one once a month and then you just do it when you do it?
Yeah, each of us does it once a month. That's the goal. That doesn't always happen. And then sometimes something might come up that I'm like, oh, I want to surprise Marty with this. So sometimes there have been months that I've planned 2 dates in a month. We have some clients that are are really, really busy. And so they will alternate. So like once a month, he'll plan it. The next month she'll plan it. There really is no right or wrong way to do it. If you can get in at least 2 dates a month, I think is ideal. Single people have asked me that, they're not single, but no kids. People who have no kids are like, well, can we do this every week? And I'm like, sure. When you don't have kids, or depending on your job stress and that kind of thing, if you want to do a date once a week, go for it. There's no right or wrong, but I mean, at a minimum, once a month, I mean, for sure. I think to keep a relationship healthy, really twice a month, come on, once a month, you can't plan a surprise date for somebody. And again, you can't use money as an excuse or time as excuse, because if you're using time as excuse, you got some bigger issues. If you don't think your partner is worth spending an hour of your time researching and planning a date once a month, I mean, then there's something else that's going on. And, that kind of leads me into saying that this is not, planning surprise dates won't save your relationship if you don't have a good relationship. It will just enhance it and make it better. And Marty and I, actually, we just got married in April. But a year ago, basically in June of last year, he broke up with me, and I was completely blindsided. And, so even with us planning dates and things like that, there were other issues that were going on that were swept under the carpet. And our house kind of became crowded. Things changed when both my kids moved home, which added some stress and things like that. There's all kinds of reasons.
This was all during COVID, right?
Yes, during COVID. Yes, both of my kids ended up, we used to have every other week free and had more time for each other. And then having the kids, full time. And I realized if you're a parent, obviously, and you're you have your kids full time. I mean, that is part of it, right? But it's about making that time, but having those, adjustments for us caused some issues in our relationship. And I think at the time I kept thinking, it was difficult, but eventually this will go away. This is going to pass. And then who knew it was going to be 2 years, right, of that.
Right.
So we ended up, we broke up last year, then we got together and worked through things and, got married, and our relationship is stronger and better than ever. And we look at it as a learning lesson to, planning surprise dates is not a Hail Mary. It's not going to save your relationship. It's not a Band-Aid. It's an enhancement to make it better, but you have to make sure that you're doing the other work, like communicating. We are firm believers in therapy and counseling, as like going to the gym. If you go to a therapist when things are bad, it's probably too late. You're either looking for confirmation that you should get out of the relationship, or, trying to figure it out, because it's usually too late at that point. Not always. So if you go, at least, you have to decide what's best for your relationship, but once a month, not once a month. You could go once a month, I guess, to a therapist. Maybe it's once a year. Maybe it's once every 6 months, just to check in or have those check-in conversations with each other, which this is kind of executive functioning too, I think. Being disciplined and scheduling once a month on Sunday. And during COVID and the pandemic, we stopped doing this. I don't know why. It's really weird. But before that, once a month.
Is what the check-ins are all about. Because explain what that means.
So we have a monthly check-in that we do. So once a month, we've decided on Sunday morning, we get some coffee, before we go to church, exercise, whatever. Then we will, we ask each other, and you take turns, and you have to allow the other person to talk, listen to them without judgment, repeat back what they said so that you are sure you understand them for clarification.
Active listening.
Yes, active listening. And then, and so basically you would say, are there any unresolved issues that we need to discuss? If so, what are they? And then the other thing too, is you can't just talk about the issue. If there is an issue, you've got to resolve the issue, and go to the resolution. And that's one of the things that our therapist pointed out to us, is that we would talk all about the issue, and we thought we were working on it, but we never came to any resolutions. And agreeing on the resolution, like, okay, this is what we're going to do to, improve this situation. This is what does this work for you? Yes. Does it? No, it doesn't. Okay. Well, what do you suggest? And really talking through the issue to completion, and then, working on it. One of my favorite questions also is, what can I do for you this month to make you feel more loved? Because we're not mind readers, right? And you might think your partner needs one thing and they need something else, and knowing your partner's love language is really helpful. Like Marty, I'm words of affirmation. Marty is acts of service. So I know doing things for him, is a great gift. It's interesting, actually, for June, for our date of the month club, normally we give a gift idea every month. And this month we're focusing the gifts on the 5 love languages. So we're suggesting, depending on your partner's love language, we have a suggestion of a gift that you can give them, or a couple of gift ideas for their love language to fill that emotional bank account. And I think it's really important that you schedule your monthly check-in, and it doesn't have to be the first Sunday of the month. You pick what's best for you, and schedule it and put it in the calendar, and don't, make sure that you're consistent and you stick to it. And if you do that, you definitely will have a healthier relationship.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. So do you have any last minute advice that you would want to offer our listeners? Any, based on your personal experience, based on your knowledge of how relationships work, because you've been doing this for a number of years now. What is your biggest recommendation or bit of advice that you would give individuals or couples?
As humans, I think we're always concerned about disappointing another. We're concerned about how other people see us and view us and how we look. And I know that it really shouldn't be that way, right? Go and be yourself, be who you are, shine your light. But I know that that's an issue. And from speaking with clients, sometimes that holds them back. Like they're afraid to plan a surprise date, that what if their partner doesn't like it? See, where if you're talking to somebody and going, well, hey, do you want to go axe throwing? And they're like, no, I don't want to do that. Or do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And then, or even, I use this as an example too, like we started a movie jar or a TV show or whatever. Cause sometimes like you're tired, you want to just veg in front of the TV. What do you want to watch? I don't know. What do you want to watch? And then we spend 45 minutes flipping through movies. And after that, I'm like, and we can't, no, I don't want to watch that. No, I don't want to watch that. And then I'm like, so ticked off. I'm like, I don't even want to watch a movie now. Like, forget it. And so we've created, everybody gets to, if you take the time to put your movie or show that you want to watch in the jar, then when it's like time to watch a movie, you can just pull one out. Right. That is something that you could also do with date ideas. So it could be a surprise to both of you. Right. And you put in, or even a new restaurant you want to try, and you can pull one from each jar, maybe on different sides of town, then is the only problem with that. But make a jar or of activities that you each get to put some in that you want to do. And you could do that for your date night. Like okay, Fridays or Saturday, we're going to do something. Let's pull something out of the jar and do it. If you have a hard time or you're worried about that your partner's not going to like it. And I just want to say this, I have a client who he stopped planning dates because he said he knew what his partner wanted. And so he just let her plan it, but she just really wanted him to plan a date, and she didn't care what it was. And he was so nervous. And so she would shoot down his ideas. So doing the surprise element is great because there's no whining and there's no complaining. And so just do it. Don't be afraid. His very first date he planned was a total flop, because he was taking her to the driving range to shoot golf balls and before dinner, and they were seating. And so it was closed. So they had to do something else. And they laughed so hard about it. It ended up like he was so worried about disappointing her, and then it ended up being a flop, and they were able to laugh about it. And now he plans surprise dates for her and she does for him. And so my advice would be to, find a way, make a way, and get it done.
Yeah, I think it's more about having that experience with the person that you're with, as opposed to golfing or,
It doesn't matter what you do.
right. It's just about that time you spend together. And then whatever you end up doing is what gives you the stories, what gives you that
Mhm.
thing to talk about. So I think it's wonderful.
And the surprise element, anticipation makes life worthwhile. So the surprise element and the anticipation. So the two key points are the surprise, the anticipation, as well as doing something new and novel together that you haven't experienced before, or experiencing something maybe you have experienced before, but in a different way.
I love it. Well, Dana, I really want to thank you for being on the summit today. How could people get in contact with you if they would like to reach out to you, maybe learn more about Surprise Date Challenge, or if they'd like to, get onto your website or anything like that? How can they get in contact with you?
Sure. Our website is surprisedatechallenge.com. And you can also email me at dana@surprisedatechallenge.com. There's also a contact link on our website if that's easier. They can also text me or call me at 602-699-6255.
Thank you so much. And as always, it is such a pleasure talking to you. And thank you for being on the summit.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.